evening and welcome to the fourth in the series of 6 of Homebuyer Education Workshops brought to you by the Schuylkill Valley Chapter of Credit Unions. I am Trish Shermot. I represent CTCE Federal Credit Union, just one of the credit unions of the 14 credit unions that belong to the Schuylkill Valley Chapter. The credit unions in Berks County represent 191,000 members and over $2 billion in assets. So we are certainly glad that the Schuylkill Valley Chapter decided to sponsor this program, and we look forward to a great 30 minutes with 2 wonderful guests today. So I am going to talk a little bit. Bob Zwolinski, you've met him many times in these programs, and we also have a special guest, Dave Mattis, who's joining us today, who has recently been inducted into the Reading Berks Realtors Board of Directors as Vice President. So Bob's going to take us into our objectives tonight, and then he'll introduce our special guest. Bob?
Well, thanks, Trish. Hey, thanks everybody for joining us. Let's look at some of the objectives we've got today. We're going to review the first steps in purchasing a home, understand all the costs that are associated with it, and be familiar with the mortgage types, those fixed rates, adjustables, decide the kind, location, and the requirements of the home that you're going to select, and know how to look at the home, take notes so that you can go ahead and make a good choice. We're also going to understand, the closing process and related costs. Know the sources for buyer assistance programs we'll look at. Now, first we'll look at a real estate agent and how to find one. So tonight we're kind of lucky. We have Dave Mattis with us. Dave represents the Reading Berks Association of Realtors. He's a vice president at the board of directors. And I'm allowed Dave to introduce himself to everybody. So Dave, it's all yours.
Sounds good. Thanks, Bob. Well, I'm really glad to be here tonight. I've been helping people buy and sell real estate since 1995, and just again glad to be a part of the seminar and share some information with you.
Well, thanks, Dave. Well, listen, as a realtor and a real estate agent, we want to know tonight, what are some of the roles and responsibilities that you have?
Sounds good. Well, when you first meet with a realtor, the first thing that we provide proper agency disclosures. A real estate agent can represent a buyer, can represent a seller, or they can actually represent both parties in a real estate transaction. So one of the very first things we do at our first meeting is explain that agency relationship to you. We also, at the same time, gather your preferences of what you're looking for a house. We want to know, where you want to be, what school district you might want to be in, how many bedrooms do you need, just all the factors that encompass what you might be looking for in your house. Once we've gotten all that information, then we have access to all the houses that are out there that are listed in our multi-list. So again, we'll get you printouts of all the homes. We can email them to you, we can fax them to you, mail them to you, or just call you and tell you about them. Email happens to be one of the best sources these days. So once, again, we've determined what you're looking for, gone through the agency relationships, then we get out there and start looking at houses. Try to schedule maybe 3 or 4, maybe 5 houses at the most at one sitting, and try to find one that you might be looking for. So some of the other pieces of information that we provide, we're actually a wealth of information. We can provide you with school information, although we're not allowed to specify which schools are better. But we can tell you where locations are. We can give you websites where you can go and do your own research on schools, shopping. We can give you tax rates. What the tax rate is for the property, what it is for that school district. Just a ton of information.
And you also take the consumer to closing?
Absolutely. Once we're out looking at houses. Once we find a house, we present the offer to the seller, get it negotiated, and we will walk you and guide you all the way from the beginning to the closing day when you walk away with keys.
Terrific. A real hand-holding experience.
Absolutely.
Dave, give us some house hunting tips.
All right. Some of the things that I recommend that people do, and everybody's different when they go out looking for a house, but one of the things you can do, people always ask me, can I take pictures? And absolutely, there's already anywhere from 1 hopefully to 25 pictures available online. But if you want to take pictures of something real specific to remember when you get home, that's perfectly fine. It always helps to bring somebody with you on the showings. I can't tell you how many times that I've been out house hunting with younger folks, and they're like, I want to bring my, a parent or uncle or brother or friend, and that's perfectly fine. It's a normal part of the process, and there's no reason that you should be rushed, into it and not have the opportunity to do that. So the other thing, you're hunting for a house, you want to make sure that the houses that you're looking at fit within your budget. So again, we'll talk about that a couple times throughout the program, that we're going to have you pre-approved with your lender, so you're going to have a really good idea of what you can afford. So most likely we'll be looking at houses that you are approved for, but you definitely want to make sure you fits within your budget. One of the things, when I list a house, I specifically ask my sellers to provide me with utility information, because again, if you're working out a budget, you want to know what it's going to cost you to heat and cool the home, what the electricity is, and so on. You can't always get that information. That is true, but ask for it. There's nothing wrong with that. And then again, where is the house? Is it on the far end of your commuting distance? Is it going to cost you, take you longer to get to work? You want to just consider that as a factor. And then, just take your time. There are times when you do have to move quicker in a real estate transaction, but for the most part, you just want to kind of take your time and gather it all in.
Terrific.
So, Dave, I've got a quick question. You talk about fitting in within the budget. So you would say that it's really a great idea to really have that pre-approval before you look for a house then, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. When we talk about the things that real estate agents provide, and our very first meeting, coincidentally, you want to speak with someone at the credit union and get approved. That way they've gone through the process of documenting your income, your credit, and the assets that you have, and then you also have been given, okay, how much is a payment for a particular house? Therefore, you can you really know that it's going to fit into your budget.
Right.
So you're not going to buy a Cadillac when you can really only afford maybe a Ford kind of analogy if we're looking at cars, right?
That's 100% correct. And everybody wants to buy the biggest house they possibly can, and that's gotten a lot of people into a lot of trouble over the last recent bunch of years. So it's really, really important that you focus on your comfort level.
Awesome.
Good question. How about some more house hunting tips?
Okay. Always a great idea to take notes. Never a problem to do that. And again, everybody handles this differently. There are people that walk into a house and they're like, "I love it. Let's go. I don't want to look any further." But there are other folks that will take a whole big list of things that they liked or didn't like about that particular home, and that's perfectly fine. And I mentioned using a checklist, and that sort of goes hand in hand with that, because you can always, as you're home and you're reviewing your photos or reviewing your notes, you can always do like a pro and con list, one house over the other, or why did I really like this house and what didn't I like about this house. So you always have to be prepared for some compromises. So it's rare that you will get 100% of what you're looking for. I will tell you that. Yeah. One more thing, and that would be to just ask for a return visit on the house. Again, sometimes there is a sense of urgency where you need to make an offer quickly. But if you have the luxury of being able to go back and maybe spend another couple minutes in the house and take your time and get a feel for whether you like it or not.
Do you get consumers that go in and see things that they didn't see the first time?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I guarantee it. Yeah. I mean, and there are times when we write up offers based on a very quick one-time visit, and something that has become more and more common when that does happen is I will at least be able to take the people back after they've negotiated, and it's going to be their house, but we've gone back and hey, we want to take some measurements or take some more notes. So
yeah, I'm sure that's a very important piece of it.
absolutely.
So you find a home you like. What's the next step?
Okay. Well, again, you've already been pre-approved, so we know we have that out of the way. So what you do at this point is we sit down together, we write up an offer. The offer, once it's signed and agreed to, becomes a contract, but for now it's just an offer. And with that offer, it includes, of course, the price that you want to offer and pay for the house. We include a good faith deposit. We also call that an earnest money deposit. It'll have other factors in it, like when you'd like to close on the house, are you having a mortgage, what inspections you might be having. So it's like a roadmap that the agent is able to follow and just guide you through the transaction so that we don't miss something very important. So again, we've made an offer, included an earnest money deposit. Once it's presented to the seller, then the agents typically go back and forth and negotiate any counteroffers. And after the deal is done, let's say, all the papers are signed, everybody's agreed to the terms, At that point, the real estate agent or an assistant or something will typically order inspections for you. You can choose them, but we will take care of ordering those for you because we want to get those done right away. Also, the lender takes over. Now again, you've been pre-approved, but now they have a few things to do where they need to get an appraisal and finalize the loan approval. So that stuff will be happening behind the scenes. Maybe they'll need some documentation from time to time. The title will also be searched, and that is in Pennsylvania we have title search and title insurance to make sure that you'll be able to own the property free and clear. Last but not least, once we've cleared all of those hurdles, it's time for keys, and you walk away with possession on the day of closing.
You make it sound so easy, but I know that there's so many steps. One thing that you mentioned, and I just want our viewers to be aware of, what is a counter offer? Tell me what a counter offer is.
I will be happy to. A counter offer, essentially, when you make an offer, the seller has three choices: to accept that offer, to reject that offer, or counter it. And what a counter offer is, it's a counter proposal. So you've come in at a certain price with certain deposit, certain settlement date. They essentially convey to their realtor, hey, well, we like the offer, but we'd like this. So that's what it is. It's a counter proposal. And we talked about making an offer in writing, but just to make you aware that counter offers can be done verbally.
But let's say that, I know you talked a little bit about earnest money, and let's say that my offer isn't accepted, they give me a counter offer, and I don't want the counter offer. What happens to that money that earnest money you talked about?
That earnest money is absolutely protected. If you and the seller do not come to an agreement, you will absolutely get that money back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, look, before we get into inspections, this is a nice time to take a little bit of a break for BCTV, and we'll be right back.
You're watching bctv.org. Be informed, be involved, be a member. For membership information, go to www.bctv.org/support/membership. For other stories and information, go to bctv.org.
Okay, we're back, and Dave Mattis is here with Bob Zwolinski and I today, and Dave's going to talk a little bit about homeowner inspections, and I know Bob has some information to add to that. So, can we take it on inspections, Dave?
Go ahead, Bob.
Okay, I'll go ahead and start.
Bye, Dave, Bob.
When you get you're looking at a home that you're looking to purchase, you really want to have it inspected. It's heavily advised to go ahead and do some. You want to look at all the components of the home. Make sure that home's in really good shape. Make sure the roof is sound, that the foundation itself is in good condition. Go ahead and take your time and go out with the inspector. If you've not been a homeowner before, it's a great opportunity to learn how the systems work. You have a heating system. Does it need the air filter to be cleaned? Where the thermostats are. Maybe if it's programmable, how to work with that. But go through, look, at everything, all the different components of the house. You also want to have the inspector check for things that you can't see, such as maybe wood eating, termites. We may have some radon gas. It's colorless, it's odorless. You do want to go ahead and look and make sure, have it tested. That house needs to be not only sound but safe as well. Walk the property, find out where the boundaries are, and talk to your insurance company. Each home has a different cost of having it insured, depending on what the structure is made out of. What if it's made out of all brick, or has a lot of wood, or maybe it has something like I own a very old home. You have a slate roof, or you have a handmade foundation. These things cost more. If you have to replace them, you want to find out. Now, what about if it has a well or a septic system? You do want to have those tested. Make sure the water's in good shape, and make sure the system, the septic system works. Now, I know Dave does this on a daily basis, so Dave, I'm going to get some input from you. What are some of the other things that maybe we need to cover on inspection?
Well, I'll tell you that the three most common inspections that I have would be the whole house inspection, and that's where you spend typically 2 to 3 hours with an inspector, and like you said, Bob, it's especially if you've never been a homeowner, you're going to learn so much about that house. It's amazing. So that's one of the most common. The next would be termites, and that's a very common thing here in Berks County, and I don't think a lot of people realize it unless you've had experience with it. It is very common to have termites. And then the next one would be radon gas. just kind of shows, I mean, it's prevalent in our area, so it is also something that you may want to test for. So
What would be like an average cost of maybe to have an inspector looking?
those three together, which again are the most common, would cost a home buyer about $500.
Yeah.
And so those are all covered by the home buyer, correct?
Typically they are.
Okay.
Yep. Now, as a seller, you can have a house inspected prior to putting it on the market or once you've put it on the market, which is actually a really good idea from a home selling standpoint.
Yeah.
Not that many sellers do that, but you certainly can. But for the most part, I would say the inspections fall to the buyer.
Sounds like a great opportunity to learn, as you said, so much about that house.
Absolutely. It would really surprise you. And then the list goes on. You really can make a contingency in an agreement of sale to inspect anything. I
Wow.
mean, zoning, you name it.
And that's
Good
why
to know.
working with a realtor is probably so important, because you've been there, done that, and you know the questions to ask and the
Absolutely.
things or the go-to people. Well, I know now we're going to get into the loan process, and really that is Bob's expertise. So I'm going to ask you, Bob, can you go over the application process now
Yes.
that we've found our dream home?
Let's take a look at it again. You're going to start off with an interview. It's a great opportunity to sit down with the loan officer at your local credit union and express to them your concerns about the mortgage. You want something maybe stable, and that's where we talked about the loan programs where it's going to be either fixed or adjustable. Prepare for all those upfront costs. I think Dave just talked about one of them there. We have to get maybe an inspection done. There's an application or an appraisal that may be due upfront that to have the home appraised. Get the application process going. Part of that earnest deposit we talked about, that's an upfront cost. But of course that's all inclusive of the total cost it takes to go ahead and complete the transaction. Talk about locking in the rate. The rate is really part of the reason you might be getting that mortgage. Got a great rate, lock it in, make sure you have ample time. Good time to lock it in is once the inspection's done. You got a green light to purchase this home, lock that rate, you got your payment all set. And also, at that point, get approved. We talked about not looking at a home before you get that approval. So try to get that approval, right up front.
Very important.
Yeah, and let's look at some of the these disclosures that will come across. Now, you're not going to walk in and walk out of the interview without anything. You're going to start receiving disclosures, typically within 3 days. They're going to describe in detail all the costs. And should anything change, such as an interest rate, because maybe you didn't lock it in, now you do, the rates may change, they're going to redisclose all those fees again. No surprises. Keep you informed. How about the type of program that you're choosing, be it fixed rate, adjustable, how long, the interest rate? Again, that'll also be disclosed to you right up front. There are some after settlement closing type of documents to look at, and that might be servicing. Who am I going to make that mortgage payment to? That will be disclosed. So you're really getting fully informed on the whole process of the loan.
Yeah, and some of the disclosures that you talked about, are there for your protection. That's the whole reason that they're there. So they are confusing documents, so don't ever hesitate to sit down with your loan officer and say, okay, what is this form, what is that,
And your realtor has a lot of experience in going to closings, and they're familiar with those documents, so they
Absolutely.
can help redirect the questions back to the lender. And
Yeah.
Bob, I know that you've probably had so many questions at closings on the whole
I
process.
think if I did a
with
good
disclosure.
job, I'd have less questions at closing, to be honest with you. But yeah.
Well, let's
so-
talk about the closing process.
Yeah, let's talk about, who does what and when. The closing is the time where everybody gathers and everything's exchanged, be it the monies, the keys, etc. I'm going to kind of go over generally, but I'm going to ask Dave to jump in and kind of give a little bit more detail. But, the cost, again, you're going to bring whatever remaining portion of your down payment. You're going to establish those escrows to pay your insurance and those real estate taxes that will be due in the future. Then you'll have your title insurance, any recording fees, etc. So all those monies will be due, at that time. So that kind of gives you an example of the closing costs. But maybe Dave, you can elaborate a little bit more on what happens at closing.
Sounds good. Closing day is essentially, we some states call it escrow, sometimes we call it settlement, and it's essentially the day that all of the money gets processed, all of the documents get signed, and the deed and the keys transfer. So one of the things that we do prior to closing on a home is we do a final walkthrough, or what we call a pre-settlement walkthrough. So you actually get an opportunity to go back through the home the evening before, the day before, or the morning of, and take a walkthrough, make sure everything is where it should be. Are the appliances that were supposed to be there still there? Is the heat working? Is the water working? Did the owner leave a lot of trash? So that's a pre-settlement walkthrough. So that's one of the first things we do, just to make sure everything's okay. And then we head back to the title company, and like Bob said, that's where you pay for all of those costs that are involved, and all the remainder of the money gets gets brought in and dispersed by the title company. So it's usually a good time. I mean, they can be contentious, but it's usually a good time, because at that point, all the paperwork is in order. The bank has brought their money along, and the owner's ready to sell, and you're ready to buy. So again, you walk away with keys on that day.
Yeah, and of course, at the end of closing, you want to talk about some of the documents that you signed, keep them in a safe place. The biggest thing, of course, is going to be your mortgage and, that note. But the lender will prepare a really nice package for you, give you a copy of everything, and you'll walk away with everything you signed. So, usually at closing, it's a happy time. It's time to celebrate your new home.
A lot of emotion, a lot of anxiety, and a lot of paperwork, but good things that happen at the end. So, Bob, tell us about the timeline for shopping for a home.
Yeah, let's go ahead and talk about that. We stress it all in all the different shows prior to this. We talked about it again right up front. Get pre-approved. Know your limits so that the real estate professional can take you out and show you the homes that are going to fit right within your budget. Choose a real estate agent, someone that's knowledgeable, can go over things that I don't think we even thought about before the show. There's so many different things to be aware about. Start to look at houses. That's the fun part. Find a home, put in your offer, the purchase, and let the negotiation begin. Then once you do select a home, contact the lender. Get the sales agreement over so that we can go ahead and get that appraisal done. That'll finalize your mortgage commitment for you. Get the inspection done. Once you have that loan commitment from your lender and we deliver to you the full approval, you want to bring it to your agent. You want everybody to be informed that you are ready to go ahead and move to the next stage, which is going to be closing. And then you'll finalize the numbers. At that point, you're going to get all the money you need to bring. You're going to bring it in one simple, check, guaranteed funds. Attend closing and prepare to move in. Then the hard part comes, to go ahead and start packing.
Packing and painting.
Very exciting. You talked a lot about the whole process, and Dave, I know it's probably for a first-time home buyer maybe a little bit overwhelming. Do you have some tools or something to keep them on track?
I do. When I meet with a buyer, and any agent can do this, I have a nice packet of information that I hand to you. Some of it has to do with the transaction and some of the paperwork that you're going to encounter, and the other part of it is things like lead disclosure or education about radon gas, and just things like that. So I also have a booklet. It's 10 tips for buying a home, and again, it just walks you through the whole process from start to finish, from finding an agent all the way through closing, and what to expect. So, and we're going to stay with you the whole way as well.
And I think that's so important, to have a partner that you can trust that's going to hold your hand the whole way. Okay, well, one of the things that we want to talk about are from the lender's perspective. We have 14 credit unions out there, and we invite you as consumers, if you're not a member of a credit union, to go out and seek their advice, walk through their processes, see what kind of lending programs that they have, because I'm sure that they may have one that will fit into something that you're looking for out in the community. And again, we have those 14 credit unions listed on the slide for you, and this whole program will be archived within the BCTV website. So as we move forward to the end of the program, Bob, one more time, are you ready? Checklist for Are We Ready to Go?
All right, let's go over that again. We talked about getting your finances in order. It all starts with working with a loan officer at your local credit union. Get everything that you need as far as the loan to get pre-approved. Decide what type of house you'd like to own. Look at the places that you may want to go ahead and live in. Then you can start looking for homes. At that point, it's great to go and meet someone like Dave who can take you around, very knowledgeable about the areas, and find that home you're really looking for. Use a checklist when you're visiting the home so you don't forget. Take pictures, take someone else with you. Understand that application and closing process. Talk with the lender, the real estate agent. They're both going to work with you. You're not out doing this alone, and they're going to guide you through to make it nice and smooth. Again, the credit union's a great place to find these programs that are going to help you get into the home, and they'll walk you through it and take away any fears you may have.
Before we sign off and say goodbye, couple questions. What's the number one question that you get, Dave, from a buyer?
Number one question I get from a buyer is, am I missing anything? Am I missing any of the homes that are out there for sale? I want to make sure that I have access to every home that's on the market.
What's the number one question, Bob, when somebody comes for a mortgage? What's the number one question that you get?
I think the number one thing I get is just really how much can I afford? We talked about this earlier. It's how much you can afford on paper and how much can you really afford yourself, where you're comfortable. So make sure you stay within your comfort zone.
Well, we do want to remind you that our next program will be on Wednesday, March 27th at 8 p.m. We invite you to join us. And again, all these programs are archived on the BCTV website. So if you haven't seen any of the others, please go to www.bctv.org and check them out. Thank you again. Dave, Bob, thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks, everyone.
My pleasure. Glad to be here.